Well, Ryan is back, I guess. No really impactful patch changes have happened since last stage in this one, and yet we've seen a lot more variety in compositions, and for a couple teams, a lot more Reinhardt. So why is this? Well, there's a couple of reasons. None of them are particularly really impactful, but some of them are definitely interesting. For London in particular, I guess it's sort of a let's return back to grassroots, go back to monkey stage. Actually, ironically, the opposite of monkey stage, because they've been struggling a little bit with monkey, but the Reinhardt has been not only a confidence boost for them, but they've been executing on it well, and if that's where your strengths have lied this season, then you might as well go for it. But it's not just been London. I think another important team that's been doing this as well were the Florida Mayhem in their match versus the Atlanta Reign. Played a pretty significant amount of Reinhardt in that match, and why did they do that? Well, a couple of reasons why. I'm going to get my little notebooks out here. So first thing is first is that Florida, like London, actually have some really good mechanical players on those heroes. I think someone is easily the second best Reinhardt in the league at the moment. I think Checkmate is a really good Mei. I think obviously Merit is one of the best Sojourns in the entire world, probably top 3 mechanically right now. RuPaul, phenomenal Batiste, one of the best, if not the best in the league. Obviously Chorong and Lucio goes without saying. Guy's really good at it. So they have the pound for pound strengths that a lot of these other dive teams don't have on that Reinball composition. Obviously, it's just Florida. They're always going to fight dirty. Florida has been the team that I've probably reviewed on this series more than any other team, just because they always like to mix things up, especially against the top teams. They're not going to fight you fair. They're going to fight you dirty. They're going to make you adapt. They're going to make you learn. And Atlanta really struggled with that this time around. A map pool mix-up definitely, I think, has impacted this one a little bit as well. Obviously, a map like Dorado, terrible Rhine map. Even a map like Gibraltar, also a terrible Rhine map. But Ike Vault, at least on defense, when you have the positional advantage, gives a lot of options, especially on third point, starting second point, and first point. It's something that I think a lot of teams, we will continue to see more Rhine out of some of these teams moving forward, just because the amount of chokes, there's tight sight lines that are available on that point as compared to some of the map pool that was happening earlier. And finally, I guess a little tiny detail that's worth bringing up is the Cassidy grenade change, which didn't really have much of an impact on 99% of situations, but there's still very niche circumstances for example, Lijiang Tower, you want to TP to point. All right, so they go Ball, Pharah, Doom, Pharah, Orisa, Pharah, whatever. You lose the fight eventually. Some teams are actually going to be able to swap to Cassidy and ruin you opening out on Doom or Ball to counter the sim comp, because Cassidy Grenade is actually pretty darn impactful, even at the top level, to Doomfist and Ball players. So we're going to see, which is why we started to see a lot more Orisa, because you can't really open out that. In addition to that, it does have a minor impact versus the Winston comp, because whenever there's Primal Rage, Stick is pretty tough to deal with as Primal Rage. And you can actually stick a Winston post bubble and allow you to do things like combo with Window, combo with Blizzard, a couple other details, things like that. So it's not really a hugely impactful thing. Cassidy still gets one shot off a dive is perfect. And ult a game. However, there are more fights where it is possible for the Winston dive composition to mess up, and the execution is there. Is this composition going to be meta? Absolutely not. Zero chance. However, are we going to be seeing it from some teams, even pretty good teams? Yes, probably, especially on certain maps like Colosseo and maybe even Ike Vault as well. Today, I know we talked about Hottie a little bit in the thumbnail and the title, but today we're going to be focusing mostly on someone, because someone played this most recent weekend on the Reinhardt versus Dive, and I think they did a really good job of it. If you guys want to see London playing versus Dive and doing it well, you can check out any of our matches last season or their most recent match versus the Los Angeles Valiant on, I believe it was Ike Vault. I think they played some pretty good Brawl versus Dive, so you can check that one out. All right, so for today, focusing on the match versus Atlanta, because I think there's just going to be a little bit more opportunity to talk about many of the things that the Godfather Hottie and the London Spitfire really developed. So, I'm going to pat not only myself, but mostly the team and the players of the London Spitfire this season and last season for developing a lot of these strategies and how to play, because this is why a lot of teams aren't going to play the strategy. Not only does it have weak ult economy, not only is it slightly, noticeably inferior to Dive, but it's also really freaking hard to play. You not only need somebody to be mechanically competent on BAP, Lucio, Ryan, Mei, and Cassidy, or Sojourn, or whatever. You need to be able to understand the macro of the composition as well. The ability to control off angles and shoot out DPS. The ability to bait people, sell people on one angle while your BAP lives on another angle. Or sell your BAP while your hit scan lives on another angle. Your Ryan needs to know when he needs to be controlling the enemy backline versus peeling off and going backwards on the enemy Winston. When your Mei needs to be controlling an off angle versus when your Mei needs to be walling off the follow-up. Where your Lucio needs to be with your Batiste or whether your Lucio needs to be in your hits cannon on off angle. When you go for crazy cheese plays or things that you can kind of peel and quote-unquote catch the dive. The biggest thing is it's to control chaos. It's controlled chaos. It's about marking angles, and just either poking out the enemy team to prevent them setting up the dive or finding a way to punish and trade the dive as best as you possibly can. Now, the problem with the dive matchup right now, especially in the current dive meta, and why it's never been harder, is because Sombra exists. And Sombra is, I mean, old economy was hard enough as it is, but this is going back to the old days when Genji was really strong in Overwatch 2, where it was Nanoblade, Primal, Beat. It just felt like a never-ending cycle of ultimates. Sojourn ult. Right now, it's EMP, Nano Primal, EMP, Nano Primal, and then you just have something like Beat or Rally thrown in there, and it feels miserable. So that's the difficult thing. The other thing with Sombra as well is not only does it add an extra layer of ult boost, but it's also one of the advantages, as we said, of this composition is the ability to have your Ryan anchor on point. And then have your Cassidy, Mei control an off angle, Batiste pocketing, maybe Lucio pocketing the other one. But the problem is that Sombra can't really be marked. Sombra can stage on any off angle that she wants and set up a hack follow-up for the dive at any point in time. So when you can't mark the dive by either shooting them or walling them off, you don't really know where they are. That's a huge disadvantage for the Brawl team because that's one of their big advantages. So, okay, so we'll take a look here. I want to focus on a bunch of fights. Basically, this is going to be not a team review. I'm not going to focus as much on what Atlanta did well, what Atlanta didn't well, but I'm going to focus mostly on what Florida did on the maps and the matches that they were, not the matches, but the map where they played the dive or the Brawl versus the dive. So first things first here is I want to point out a little bit of a detail here is that your Batiste needs to find the balance between one of two things, either taking the most safe position possible, trying to find the most safe conservative offing where he can still shoot, or taking a more aggressive position and using what I would call dynamic positioning, which is where the Sombra will hold on an angle, mark the BAP, hey, this is where the BAP is, ping the BAP, the Winston sets up for a dive, but right as the dive happens, the Batiste actually rotates away. And the reason why this is important is he's still going to get hacked. He's still going to take damage. But if he can avoid landing in Winston bubble and avoid taking landing damage, that's actually a really big deal. So a lot of dynamic positioning is reacting to what's given to you and to the enemy team's dive and being a little bit unpredictable. So you can actually see right here from RuPaul, RuPaul's on backside a point, and as soon as the hack happens, he starts to immediately rotate. But you could see the problem here, right, for Atlanta. He actually is able to completely rotate and avoid the landing damage entirely. And Donghack is actually getting toasted on entry, and this is what you love to see as a Batiste, right? Now, he's still easily the weakest, most fragile part of the composition, but this is really well executed by Florida. And you're going to see this a few more times, so I'm not going to point it out anymore, but you can kind of keep an eye out. Like, look at how few times or how much effort is put in by RuPaul. He still dies here, by the way, to avoid getting landed on. That's a big deal. So ridiculous that Lip has already farmed an EMP here. I don't even think that they've tracked that he has EMP yet. Maybe they've pressed tab, maybe they have, maybe they haven't. Either way, basically, all this is to kind of demonstrate that like when these ult fights get really nasty, you just basically lose. You have to create chaos, and you just have to you can't fight it fair. You can't group up or tape. You even take like conservative offense. You have to do something corny because you just instantly one shot here. So what Florida has to do is they essentially have to win a handful of ult fights through chaos, cheese, whatever. And they kind of have to, the way that we looked at it with London is we kind of had to win like every neutral. Every fight where there was like, oh, they don't have a lot of ults, we have to win that fight. Like it is a non-negotiable, like you must win this fight. You have to win this fight. If you don't win this fight, then you're going to lose this fight, and then you're also going to lose the next fight because they're going to have ultimates as well. So, and even then, like you see this and you're like, oh, well, Florida won the fight that they had to, but they're still going to lose. So first things first, Sombra gets cleared out. Donghack uses jump. A good for all teams going to punish this every time. Now you could look at this and been like, okay, they could have nanoed Monkey here. Atlanta's way too slow. Florida's way too fast. They panic Nano Blade, but Ana's already dead. The beat goes out because there's no Winston bubble. The Genji gets completely toasted. And what I want to highlight that fight right there because this was Atlanta's problem for most of the match. Florida played this one, I think, very well. I think Florida should be very proud of their performance. However, Atlanta really fumbled the bag on a lot of blades, especially. Has a lot of issues with Winston. We even had a couple of fumbled EMPs in this match where the follow-up wasn't there. And that is the number one reason why this match went the way that it did. Now, why did it? Is it inexperience versus this composition? Was it a little bit of match nerves? Were Florida forcing a lot of errors? I think it's probably all of the same. Maybe not so much match nerves with this team. Maybe it's a little bit of a, Goliath tastes blood for the first time and doesn't know exactly how to handle it. Who knows? But regardless, I think they definitely were not as comfortable timing-wise, teamwork-wise, or old economy-wise versus the brawl composition, and it really, really did show. So, again, this is the strength of Florida doing Florida things where, or Florida doing London things where you throw all that you know about the composition, not all of it, but a lot of what you know about the composition out the bag, and you mix things up, and Atlanta all of a sudden isn't Atlanta anymore. Okay, so I'm not gonna. That's basically the last time I'm gonna focus on an Atlanta mistake. For right now, I'm gonna be focusing more on what Florida does really well. So I think this is like a good example of like what I was talking about the old economy wise. Like they come in here with just a dry dive, a primal rage. They're trying to mark the backline. Backline's too far away. Ana's too far away. So the Reinhardt actually turns around and shatters. We have Shatter, Blizzard, Window, and High Noon, and they kill Donghack. And this is kind of like, you like look at that and you're like, didn't they overinvest? Yes, I think the Blizzard was an overinvestment. I don't think the Blizzard should have been used because whenever the Winston has Primal, a smart Winston will never get frozen with Primal. So that's probably not the ultimate to use there. But the other ultimates, it's like, it happens, like a lot of these ultimates are opportunistic, and also they're not particularly good at counting other ults. So Florida just has to win this fight, right? They can use 4 ults. It literally doesn't matter. The ults aren't even any good anyway. So you might as well just use them and see what happens, right? So, you're going to go into this next fight and be like, well, I wish we had Blizzard. We really didn't need to use Blizzard, but it happens. And I think what's really important is then what actually happens here. And so the casters are really confused about what actually happened, but you can already see it happening on your screen here. And this is the first thing that I was expecting when watching. I actually watched this match back for the first time yesterday, and I'm sitting here taking notes. I'm like, who's gonna flank this fight, right? Is it Merit? Is it Checkmate? Who's gonna flank here? And sure enough, Choron goes off with Merit on a flank, and this is really where Lip kind of fumbled the bag here, because like Lip sees this happening, and this is another problem with the Sombra, right? She can scout this cheese all day long. She can ping this. There's really no reason for Fielder to die to this. Nobody's even looking out back anymore. I think maybe Stalker looks for a second, but then he just kind of ignores it. So then someone hard pushes, Checkmate hard pushes. RuPaul literally hides in Mega and just plays as far away as he possibly can, just total cheese, inaccessible. Meanwhile, they kill backline, and it's like this is the kind of stuff that Florida was doing such a good job out of. So this fight, I actually feel it gets pretty chaotic here, but like Florida, again, a neutral, they just had no business winning that fight, and they were able to pull it out. And those fights are the ones where you must win. You have to be able to pull a couple of those out, not just because they're neutrals, that goes without saying, but just because it's like one of those situations where it's like, we need to win at least a handful of those if we want to win the map, and they did. By the way, check out this lamp from RuPaul. Check out this lamp from RuPaul. RuPaul completely split, completely isolated. This is punishable if Lip finds him. He can basically solo force lamp. One of the reasons why I like the Tracer as well is because, yes, the old economy is a little bit weaker, but it's really, really easy to harass and kill split targets. The Genji is pretty good in some ways, but also not pretty good in other ways. I think Stalker's blades were horrendous throughout this entire match. But yeah, this is like, look, check this out. EMP, lamp, already there. Then he walks in, shifts, and then they counter EMP, and they just win the fight. And it's like stuff like this that was making, allowing Florida to really like pop off. So I think Florida played this one really well. I don't even remember if they won that. I think they lost. Did they lose the map? Yeah, they lost the map. So they end up having to go dive and attack because you don't have any positioning. So you don't have the positional advantage, so it's basically impossible to retake. London kind of put on a clinic and Howl to retake this map into dive versus a not as good team. It's basically just through forcing cart with Ryan May, forcing cart on second point, kind of brute forcing it. But yeah. Oh, quick shout out. I wanted to do this. I know we're talking about Ryan Brawl here, but quick shout out to the Widow Echo composition here, which is actually not only because you have Merit, who's just a freak of nature. The guy just hits headshots in everybody constantly. But the reason that they're running Widow Echo is because when the Widow is on, let's find this position. Widow is here. She's actually inaccessible from both Sombra and Tracer. It's almost impossible to do anything to her. So then they're going to run Echo, right? Echo is really good on this first point. But the problem is the only flank that you can take, and I'm not going to give you guys an example because we don't have the time here, but the only flank that the Echo can take is this flank, but you're going to consistently see if you guys watch this match, they run Echo, and Checkmate actually marks Stalker from flanking his Widowmaker. In addition to that, Atlanta got really impatient with their dives. Like every single time, I swear, they tried to dive Merit with like Nano immediately, and Merit would grapple away. They should have dove, restabilized, dove again, but they really struggled. Florida got a little lucky here. Merit ends up popping off at least like 2 or 3 times, but again, that's what this composition is designed to do, is to create these opportunities, and it's a cool little strategy there. So anyway, okay, we're gonna move on to Colosseo. So this is where the brawl like actually like works out pretty nicely here. So now, not the timestamp that I want. Oh, it's 6 minutes in. Okay, so I talked about this on stream, or not on stream. I posted about this on Twitch, or Twitter, excuse me. This is something that London came up with. So we would reverse the map. We would also, I sat in custom games for like 15 minutes with Backbone, and I figured out that you can actually make this wall jump up here. It's hard, but you can make this wall jump. And so when people would often leave their soldier on the high ground, we would clear them out. We'd kill the soldier. The other thing about this, and the more important thing for this particular matchup, is when you flip the map here, you're supposed to push the robot, right? But when you flip the map, they go, oh crap, they're on us, we got to run away. You know, on Elusive, they got to run, right? We have the better brawl comp. So they run away, they flip the map. The problem with that is you put your Reinhardt on cart here, and they put Winston on cart here. We're going to pull the robot away from them. They actually have to put their Winston to stop cart, which means we shoot him in the face. Ryan's got way better point presence with his shield than Winston does. Winston does not want to use bubble. Winston's bubble's way squishier, way easier to shoot. So what ends up happening is Winston has to contest. Robot gets shot a lot and has to back up. We start to steal the robot away, right? Or they're forced to dive very quickly before they get a proper setup, and it's Colosseo, guys. You don't get proper setups at all. So basically it forces either Fielder to hit a huge nade, Lip to hit a headshot, or for them to get some crazy super fast dive. Otherwise, we're just going to start to C9 the cart. And Florida does this. Like, to give credit to Florida, you know, they use the strat, and they do it really well. So they flip the map. Robot's going to unlock in about 7 seconds, and they're going to start pulling the robot away. And all we have to do now, as Florida, is shoot the Winston. Shoot the Winston. Shoot the Winston. Here it comes. Robot is unlocked. Reinhardt immediately moves to robot. We start to steal the robot. Shoot Donghunk to shoot Donghunk to shoot Donghunk to shoot Donghunk. Donghunk has to back out. Doesn't want to touch robot. They're contesting. Donghunk has to use a bubble early. Ends up getting nuked. Has to jump out. Now we start C9ing robot. And that's exactly what happens here. And so basically they get a really, really early lead for like absolutely nothing just by doing that. So now they get the lead, ends up being some fun, funky shenanigans, and then now we're in like a stall situation where like, okay, we have a pretty significant lead here. All we have to do is just stall. Now, I'm going to talk really quick about the Atlanta composition. Why are they on Genji? Okay, again, brawl. Why are they in Sojourn? The map is very narrow. It's hard to set up as a Sombra here, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. I just think Sombra is just, my heart says you just need to be playing Sombra. Even on a map like Colosseo, which isn't that good, I just think you need to be playing Sombra. I think this is a situation where it just gives the Rein and Mei way too much value when you're playing Sojourn, because not only is it another thing to wall, it's another thing to shatter, it's another thing to Mei ult, it's another thing to beat and rush on, it's another thing for Sojourn to shoot, it's something for Reinhardt to pin. There's just so many ways of dealing with a Sojourn that are just impossible to deal with in Sombra. So I think it's just a misplay from Atlanta. I think Sojourn makes sense for the map, but it just doesn't make sense for the composition. And if you're going to make a swap to Genji, you should probably make the swap to Sombra too, and just trust your ult game to win it for you. But anyway, nice little split here. Kind of a fumble of the bag there from Chorong. I don't know if they were ready for that or not, but you can see it's a nice position from RuPaul. They end up actually almost trading Donghak for pinning in that far. Again, you can see the problem with this right here is where like if it isn't quite there. The Genji C can't quite reach the targets that he wants to go for, that Tracer and Sarma would otherwise be able to do. It feels like Lip's impact here is rather minimal. Anyway, so they're unable to get the pick. They're unable to get the trade that they would want. And I think that another, like speaking from the Reinhardt point of view, this position, like this is how Reinhardt comps win, right? Is you take an off angle, a slight off angle with your DPS and just heavily poke out. Like Mei has some significant poke versus this composition. The problem here is that I'm not sure why, but Chorong is really, really, really late to the party. Chorong needs to be here and denying the enemy engage from this, booping the enemy Lucio, booping the enemy Winston. And so what ends up happening is that this goes ugly for Mayhem because Chorong is late. And so we're able to get 1, 2, 3 people all up in the same time. And so that ends up clearing out a lot of space. Now, at the same time, though, they do what we would call the rubber band effect, where yes, we end up like this ends up feeling pretty ugly, but hey, they've used dash, they've used amp, they've used jump, and heck, they've even used E. Let's bounce right back with our cooldowns, right? And if you don't have to use a lot of your cooldowns to peel off that dive, then you can respond right back by smashing back in, because that Winston, that Genji are in no position to punish you right now because they've used all their cooldowns chasing you down. So even though Winston is busy trading backline, it's only Winston. It's not Sojourn, it's not the Genji, it's not the Lucio, and a Winston isn't the most dangerous thing in the history of the universe. Okay, so let's keep going here. I'm gonna skip a little bit ahead to 925. And we're going to talk a little bit about, again, execution here. I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to focus only on Atlanta's bad execution here, but it is going to point out where points where they kind of bait Atlanta into doing things. So, for example, right here, Brupal uses his shift here, and they actually hit nade on Choron. But this is what I would call, again, reaching, right? You see how far the back line from Atlanta is? Atlanta has really no hope of follow-up here besides just the nade and the Winston. This is just a little bit of Atlanta hubris. And you're going to notice something else. They don't just dive here. They actually commit beat here as well. So this is where like Atlanta just wasn't quite it, because all of Mayhem have to do is they have to press S key and they lamp, and then you're not going to be able to continue to pursue. What Atlanta should have done here has been a little bit more patient, push the cart a little bit further forward, and then honestly, if you're going to beat engage, you would love to have Lip actually follow up here with his shift as well, and then go just a tad bit deeper on the engage, a tad bit deeper. But as it is, Ryan is anchoring point, preventing the lead from being taken. Again, the rubber band effect of having, okay, they've used ults, we bounce back with our ults, now they have to back up, and then essentially you've traded beat for window, if the window was even necessary, and you've gotten really nothing out of it. Again, good off-angle setup, good bait, good kite, good bounce right back from the Mayhem here. And then again, this is my problem with the Sojourn, right? They wall off. Lip gets a little bit too greedy when they don't have cooldowns. He needs to give up more space. So then they go, oh, let's wall this guy off. So then he gets antsy. They jump out. Lip's like, crap, I'm dead. Great Sojourn E from Merit there. He shifts out the gap. Oh, but guess what? Mayhem has beat. Mayhem has amp. Mayhem has a lot of Rhine Shield. So someone's like, Sojourn no shift, Sojourn no shift. They actually miss the sleep dart, Fielder does. There's the beat coming in now, and Lip is dead. There's just no way to peel this guy out. He's just done. So they just walk in. And again, that's the problem with the Sojourn. It is a target that you can run on, and a target that you can run on at some point in time is going to be a liability, especially when that target makes a mistake like Lip. Okay, so, yeah. I'm gonna give you two crucial fights here that they have no business winning. We're coming up in Nanoblade, Primal, Overclock, and get ready, because this is where you just have to be better. Like, you just have to be better. It's the simplest way to look at it. This right, shattered. There it is. You can't. It can't happen. It can't happen. It just cannot happen. Now, Donhack does a great job here, C9ing cart. It's the only reason that this isn't a complete disaster for the Atlanta Reign, but it happens again. Check it out. Quick Sojourn ult, pushing into it. They also use Mei ult when the nano on the Genji goes out, trying to lock down the Winston. And then that shot right there. Again, this is what you have to do. You know, to give credit to Florida, this is what you have to do. RuPaul ends up getting traded. You trade 2 ults for 2 ults, and you don't necessarily win the fight, but you definitely don't lose it. That's what you have to do. You have to create chaos and get trades and make things messy in fights that you really shouldn't. And to be honest, this is exactly why Florida went. They were able to kind of, in these situations, make those plays happen. And I think that's a big deal. I think this is, again, just another one of the situations where I just don't really love this Sojourn. It's just like you said, he pops Q, Ryan just pins on him, so he has to leave. Stalker gets literally one shot, and then now they don't have any space. If I were Atlanta here, I probably would not have honestly rushed this. As long as you're pushing cart, just control the space passively. Let one of either the Rhine or the Mei drop to cart first to contest cart, and then go for this play by having your Sojourn shift up and avoid the Rhine. The whole thing is that you want to make the Rhine Mei like do something first, like commit to a position and then react or respond if you don't have a perfect off angle setup. And the problem with Coliseo is that if you're honest pushing cart, then you're 4v5ing, right? You really do need to kind of play the fight on point or around your on sight lines first. Make the Rhinemay drop, then respond with your Sojourn ult instead. I don't love this play from the Atlanta Reign, and like I said, a lot of this kind of stuff was happening here. 13:15, I think we got a few more timestamps. We're almost done. This might be the last one actually. Oh yeah, this is a hero pen. This is what it is. Again, there's the beat engage. They go in hard. They're honest on cart, but they really want to go directly on the backline. They force the beat in response. Not the end of the world. Beat for beat, forcing lamp as well. It's honestly a fine trade. Donghak probably is like looking to actually jump out here, but like it's someone, man. He hits the shatter on Lucio, pins the Lucio, kills the Lucio, also hits the pin on Donghak, who now has the primal rage. And Merit actually fumbles the bag pretty bad here. But this is the kind of stuff that, like, again, the Brawl comp has to do. You have to hit a pin. You have to hit a shot. And then this hero blows it from checkmate and ends up going disastrously. Because even though the fight gets really messy, someone actually ends up dying here. It's the messiness in the trades when you had zero business winning this fight that allows Mayhem to win this match. So again, I guess the main takeaways of this, you know, control angles, mark off angles, you need to cheese your ults as best as you possibly can, and you honestly need to get a little bit lucky. You need the enemy dive comp to make some mistakes. You need to hit your headshots as Mei. You need to hit a couple of crazy shots as Cassidy or Sojourn. You need to be able to basically dodge dive as BAP that you shouldn't have. You need to be able to, Reinhardt needs to hit a pin. He needs to hit a shatter. In a fight that you had no business winning, you need to cause chaos and force 3 ults when you should have forced 2. And Florida Mayhem, again and again, were not only positioning themselves well for those win conditions, but they were hitting the shots. They were making the mechanical plays. And most importantly, Atlanta looked really uncomfortable with knowing exactly what to do and how to respond. So mostly just from one match and mostly just serves as one team, but I think this was the most relevant match where people were really going like, whoa, this isn't just a London thing. Maybe this composition can work, and it can. Still a niche, still not going to ever be meta, at least in the current state of balance. However, it's something that we will probably continue to see versus teams. And what makes this composition dangerous is that even a team like Atlanta Reign doesn't get the reps. They don't know exactly how to do it. And the really bad thing is this is versus a pretty good dive team. Now imagine a not very good dive team and how they're going to be able to handle this. You see, you can't mirror. Do you mirror them on Brawl? Well, you don't want to really do that, do you? Do you play dive into these guys that have beat the Atlanta Reign with it? So the thing with the Reign Brawl is that if you have the chops for it, if you can play it, then you give a lot of other teams some serious issues. You might not be the best team if you're, OTPing it like the London Spitfire, but you're going to cause a lot of problems for a lot of teams. And I think especially because people have gotten a little bit out of practice, gotten a little bit flabby with how to actually play versus this composition, at least in the short term, we might continue to see it from some teams. Hope that meant sinks. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I'll chat with you later.